Hi guys, how you doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever hour, whichever time, or whichever region you're watching me right now. I want to say you're all welcome here. My discussion this morning, the topic of this video is the happening in Ukraine. How do you see the war happening in Ukraine, the crisis, the Ukraine crisis, the Ukraine-Russia crisis? How do you see the happening? I think there's a mistake somewhere, and we still haven't learned from the past. The mistake we are making is not able to sit down with the Russian Federation to solve this crisis that is happening. That is the mistake we are making today. We are not able to realize that what is the Russian Federation concerned about the NATO building his military base in Ukraine, or NATO having to be part of Ukraine, and all those issues like this. Do not forget how this event has unfolded. Since 2014, we have seen how the former Ukrainian president were ousted as a result of the Ukrainians' agitation to be part of EU. While some other Ukrainians, they don't really want to be part of that, and the Russian Federation see this as a security threat, because if Ukraine becomes part of NATO, that will pose a serious security threat to the Russian Federation. So the Russian Federation has been warning, but it seems that today we can see the results of those warnings, and for we not being able to listen to the other side of the story. We are seeing news today, all our mainstream medias, it's all about the Russia invasion of Ukraine, the Russia key civilians, the Russia's, invasion, the Russia invasion everywhere. That's what you hear. That's the news you hear everywhere. Honestly, it's not so as you think, because unless we also go to the other side of the story to actually understand what's currently happening. So we will not really understand, how this event is unfolding and what would have led Russia into Ukraine. But I want to tell you this quickly. I think we, the Western countries, the US, we drag Russia into this war. We caused this war. We caused this problem as a result of our greed, as a result of we not even have to listen to our opponents to see what their grievances they are. The Russian Federation has basically been agitating. They do not want the US military base in Ukraine, and they do not want Ukraine to be part of the NATO, and this is the problem that he's on ground. And Ukraine determination to be part of NATO has always been like a serious security threat to the Russian Federation. Now, before I proceed, I want to quickly show you this video so that you can understand the reason why the Russian Federation do not actually want the US military base, or do not want the NATO to be part of the Ukraine. So have a look at this quickly. Just have a look at this video.
And there's more from the United States. The White House is threatening the Solomon Islands. This is a small Pacific nation that is becoming the new flashpoint between China and the West. Solomon Islands has signed a security deal with China. We've been telling you about this. The details are yet to be shared with the world. But Washington says it will retaliate if China sets up a military base in the Pacific. In Australia, the defense minister said they should prepare for war. Why is Solomon Islands evoking such strong reactions, and what is China up to? Our next report has the answers.
China building a military base in Solomon is fake news made up by people with ulterior motives.
China remains firm in its denial, as does America in its accusation. Washington is convinced that Beijing is building a military base in the Solomon Islands, and it says it is ready to respond accordingly.
Yes, Mommy.
This is America's message, and this is the story so far. The Solomon Islands signed a security deal with China. The details of the deal are not known. A draft agreement was leaked on the 1st of April. It hinted at a possible Chinese military base in the South Pacific.
None of this comes as a surprise. The Solomon Islands has been tilting towards China for a while. In 1993, the US closed its embassy in Honiara. In 2019, the Solomons broke ties with Taiwan. 3 years later, the small island nation has become the latest flashpoint between China and the West. Why do you think this deal has alarmed the West? 1. Because its location is strategic. 2. Because if China really builds a base in the island nations, you would have the PLA just 2,000 kilometers from Australian shores. One look at this map and the implications become clear. The Solomon Islands give China the access to the entire Pacific. This changes the power balance in the region. China continues to insist that this is all fake news.
China building a military base in Solomon is fake news made up by people with ulterior motives. I have noticed that the United States and Australia have accused the security cooperation between China and Solomon Islands of lacking transparency. But the US-UK-Australia Trilateral Security Partnership Agreement, AUKUS, is an undisclosed and opaque black box operation. When will the United States, the United Kingdom and Australia intend to hand over AUKUS to regional countries, including the South Pacific Island countries, for deliberation?
The world doesn't trust the dragon. The US and Japan have rushed to the Solomons. They've extracted assurances, no long-term Chinese presence, no power projection capabilities. That's the promise that the Solomon Islands has made to America and Japan. But here's the problem. The leaked draft points and provisions permitting China to make ship visits to carry out logistical replenishment in and have stopover and transaction in the Solomon Islands. So, who do you believe? For the longest time, Australia believed this region was its turf. Well, not anymore. Prime Minister Scott Morrison says that China's involvement in the Solomon Islands is a red line. The Defence Minister has gone a step ahead. He says Australia should prepare for war.
Now, you can see what's happening on this video. The US saw this, that the Chinese military presence in the Solomon Island is a serious security threat to the US, is a serious security threat to the Australia. Now, let us come to this analysis. How many kilometers is the Solomon Islands from Australia? And how many kilometers is the Solomon Island from US to the Solomon Island? How many kilometers? So I can say, based on what I can understand about this, that even the Solomon Islands is 2,000 kilometers away from Australia and US. So the US is so much concerned about the Chinese military presence in this region. They saw this as a serious security threat. Now, if you see the Chinese security presence or military presence in the Solomon Islands as a security threat to you, why don't you think your military presence in Ukraine is a serious security threat to the Russian Federation? This is what we are saying today. A serious injustice that we have a right to legalize what is unjustful and suppress others. And when others want to do the same, we do not want to allow that to happen. This is what happened when the US, they invaded the Afghanistan. This is what happened when the US invaded the Vietnam. This is what happened when the US, they invaded Syria. This is what happened when the US, they invaded Afghanistan and Iraq and even Libya. This is always what happened. Now, when these people strike, they justify it. You cannot take them to the court. You can't do them anything. But when other people want to do the same, oh, they are crying, for me, coalitions and all that. But has our eye not open to see what is happening now? This is just like yesterday. You want to give the Ukrainians the freedoms that they need. And you think the same freedom is not applicable to the Solomon Island citizens. Is that what you think? That is why you see the Chinese presence, the Chinese military presence in this region is a very, very security threat to you. That is why you are doing everything to make sure that it never happened in the first place. Then you now think that the Russian Federations, they do not have the same right to agitate your security threat to them. This is what is happening in our world today. And when you visit the mainstream media, I do not know what's happening here. Nobody wants to say the truth about what's happening today. Nobody wants to even listen to the other party to see what their concerns they are. So what is happening now is that we have justified it. These supply weapons to another country is against international laws and norms. So what we are doing here, we find a way to justify that. We are not the one supplying weapons to the other party to start fighting. We know the result of weapons. They are not there to protect anybody. They are there to destroy lives. They are there to destroy property. They are there to destroy lives. And you know vividly where. And look at what happened. The Ukrainian president, Zelensky, I want to send this message to you. It seems you still don't understand what's happening here. You see, these people, they came to your country, they gave you hope, they're going to protect you, they want to be part of you, you can be more free under them. That is why they were coming to your country, they supply you weapons, they gave you money, they do a lot of things. But at a time where you needed these people most, at a time where Russia were about to actually carry out their military operation, as they call it, what, the US and the other party, they call as the Russia invasion of Ukraine. So when they were about to start this military operation, the people you relied on, they backed away. They seriously withdrew all their military personnel away from your country. They were not here with you. They are not there with you now, helping you to fight this war. What they are doing, they are supplying you weapons to kill your people. They are supplying you weapons to still keep fighting your brother. They are supplying you weapons to divide your people. That is what you see, to destroy property and lives. That's what's happening now. Can't you see there's a problem? If I were you, what I'm going to do is to sit down with my brother, which is the Russian Federation. Sit down with your brother, go on the dialogue, so resolve this problem. So what your brother actually wants is a neutral country, so you can be part of Russia. Actually, like what I see is that, can't you really understand, militarily, is actually even better to be part of Russia than to be part of the other side. Can't you see? Because this country, this your brother country, can actually secure you. They have the advantage of securing you even more than the other counterpart. Can't you see that? That's what we're seeing today. The injustice that we are seeing in our world today. There's so much injustice. Honestly, it's so shocking to see that even in this modern century, this is the failure of leadership we can see in Europe today. Inability to understand the issues on ground and find every diplomatic means to resolve those problems. All these crises that's happening today could have been avoided. These lives we are losing today, it could have been avoided. And what is going to end out of this war is still the dialogue. I think it's better for us, and it's better for the world to see what is happening now and look for a much better stand to solve crises like this. Honestly, I want to actually praise the Indian President Modi. I also want to give kudos to the Turkish President Erdogan. So I want to praise all these countries who are actually neutral to this case and who are looking for a more diplomatic means to solve this problem. The question that we'll be asking now is this one. There is a war between Ukraine and Russia. And why hasn't the US actually sit down with the Russian president to resolve this issue? Why hasn't the Britain sit down with the Russian president to resolve this issue? Why have we not gone through these diplomatic means to resolve this crisis? And we believe as soon as we fuel this crisis, then we can resolve it. And you know vividly, that is never going to be the end game. So that actually leaves the world thinking, could there be that this is not even the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine? Or is Ukraine battleground between these two superpower countries? And that is what we are seeing today. That is why we cannot sit down on the table to check where these mistakes are coming from, where the problems are coming from, and find a way to resolve it diplomatically. That is the simple reason why. So I'm going to come up with another video. And this video is going to basically, I'm going to be explaining details, doing a kind of comparison analysis to see how the world is reacting to the Ukrainian war, the refugee crisis that this war is costing us, and how the world is handling it. And how has the world handled the refugees who were coming from other parts of the world? How do the world respond to them? So on my next video, this is what I'm going to be explaining. Please, if you're watching me right now, I will need you to subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of information we'll be sharing here. And if you like my comment, what is your view? Is it that maybe you buy into this idea I'm sharing with you, or you do not like it at all? Just leave a comment here. Honestly, we'll be able to respond to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. And you're welcome here, the Africa Social Intellect, and bye for now.